Hi there. Yes, we lost the first connection, but I think I can hear you and I can see you, so great. Yes, today I wanted to talk about the two questions you asked me, which were the question on retroactivity and what that means, and the Biden v. Obama um, Compensation Proclamation question. As for the first one, retroactivity, as I said, I think, and of course, don't quote me because I went to law school like 100 years ago and I don't practice law, so I don't really know. But I think what it means, for me, what retro means is to go backwards, right? So if you consider, let's say, the courts, the Congress or the legislature enacted a law in 2021, normally the law would be applicable from the day it was signed going forward prospectively. Retroactivity means you enact the law in 2021 and you say that it can be applied to cases in 1978, for example, if certain conditions are met. And I think that in this case, with the millions of undefended civilian workers who were forced to work without even a symbolic dollar of pay for their entire working lives, where 100% of their wages were arbitrarily and irrationally withheld by de facto employers for 244 years, with the statutory and apparent authority of the government under monarchies. I think that, retroactivity should, it's absolutely essential in the interest of justice, especially because these workers were never acknowledged as being human beings by the courts and by the legislature. They were never acknowledged as having the right to have rights. None of their rights have ever vested. So because rights can't vest if you don't have the rights in the first place. And so I think that, you know, all laws, all labor laws and any other law, property law, inheritance law, um, you know, constitutional law, all laws that are applicable, that can be used to make the argument for these workers, should be applied retroactively, except for the Magna Carta, the English Magna Carta, and the Statute of Frauds in the UK as well, in 1677, something like that. I'm not sure. All other laws would have to be. Right. Let's see where, if I can remember where I was. I'm sorry, I had to pause there for 2 seconds. My phone never rings until I'm trying to do these interviews. But so yes, uh, Biden versus Obama in terms of this compensation proclamation. I think, as I said, that Obama was a one-off president in the sense that he's so outside of the status quo and the norm that has been president, and so he really had, I think, a very, very tough time finding consensus, getting the support he needed in the Congress, especially in the Senate. And, even internationally, I observed him, and it seemed that some of the world leaders were less deferential than they typically would have been or had been with American presidents in the past. So I just think that he was not in a position to issue a proclamation for compensation for these millions of workers who deserved to have at least a symbolic dollar of pay for their entire lifetime of work, just by right and just out of a sense of fairness. And and that would have been $17 million if each of them received $1 for their entire lifetime of work. It would have been insulting. You worked your entire life and you get $1, but it would have been better than the nothing that they received. And I do wish on a certain level that, in spite of the difficulties that, President Obama had, just said it, he could have just said, look, they're entitled to X, Y, or Z. And I have heard the the gossip that he doesn't believe reparations makes any sense. I mean, I don't know if he actually did say that, but I've heard people say that that's his position. I would have to hear him say it myself. I've never heard him say that. That all being said, I think that President Biden is a different kind of president to President Obama for a number of reasons. One is he's much older when he got the job. And when you're older, you're wiser. When you're older, you're more experienced. You've been around the block more than in your youth, and you've had an opportunity to perhaps make certain connections in your career and develop yourself as a human being and know what you stand for, what you believe, etc., etc., etc. So that's different, and it's an important difference. um, I think it also helps that he is a president of European descent and male, because I think that he is uniquely positioned to understand that way of thinking, that mind, that mindset that, um, you know, condoned, or even, maybe that's a strong word here, but he understands how something like this could be justified. I think, in the minds of other men who have similar backgrounds to what he has had in his life. Maybe I think he's more inclined to understand it than, say, Obama. And I think he's better positioned to speak to and appeal to his own contemporaries in that sense, to say, look, I mean, this is just wrong, and we have to fix it. Um, but it's more than that, because it's so sensitive, and I'm sure that I'm putting my foot in my mouth here. But President Biden, other than the fact that he's a male of European descent, I mean, strikes me as kind of a courageous kind of a guy who does it his way. He does it his way. He's in his 70s. He's lived his life. He knows exactly what he stands for. He knows exactly what he doesn't stand for. He also knows, quite frankly, that he probably doesn't have as much time as a man in his 40s to correct his errors and to make his amends in life. He's at that point in his life where I think most people are looking back at the most of their life, the majority of their lifetime and lifespan, and taking stock and trying to figure out, well, what mistakes they've made, what could they do better, what do they need to fix, and things like that. And I think that matters. But I think, as I said just a few minutes ago, he strikes me as being a courageous kind of a guy. Also, if you look at his, of videos of him when he was a young senator, I mean, he always had this sense of outrage about things that were wrong, like in South Africa, and things like that. I've seen some videos where he just wasn't for any of these things, and that's important also. um, so, assuming I didn't put my foot too much in my mouth with this particular this particular interview, I would say that President Biden and President Obama just had totally different cards to play in this game called life, in this political game, no less. And he is in a better position to issue a compensation proclamation than Obama. Now, this would make right, right. Right. Well, he definitely could issue the compensation proclamation. It doesn't mean that the Congress would sign off on it, and no one's asking him to be the Congress. I mean, all I'm saying is he should have the courage to issue the proclamation and let the chips fall where they may. Let's see what the Congress does. So I think he's, probably one of the better positioned presidents in modern history to pull it off. Whether he will have enough courage, I don't know. I think he is very courageous, but whether he'll have enough courage is a different question. Yes, it was my pleasure.